Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that cuts through the noise and gets you straight to the knowledge that, well, genuinely matters.
Glad to be here.
So if you've ever felt that relentless grind at work, the pervasive burnout, or that sense that your team is fracturing, losing its way.
Yeah, that feeling's pretty common now.
Right. Whether you're in a big corporation, a small nonprofit, even government, you're definitely not alone. And this isn't just like operational friction. Our source material today suggests it's more of a moral and relational crisis that's really reaching a breaking point.
It truly is. I mean, we've built so many of our institutions on foundations that often just sideline the human cost, right? And the environmental impact too.
Exactly. And those foundations, they're visibly cracking under the pressure now.
You can really see it.
So for this deep dive, our mission is pretty clear. We're going to unpack a really groundbreaking framework, one that suggests a radical shift isn't just possible. It's actually necessary for survival.
A big shift.
We're diving into this concept of abundant organization, drawing insights from Brian C. Alston's new book, Abundant Organization, Building Kingdom-Based, Regenerative, and Scalable Institutions.
Yeah, it's quite the title, and it delivers.
It does. And look, this isn't about minor tweaks. It's about a complete redesign, really. Placing purpose, people, and planet right at the core of how we operate.
Fundamentally shifting from that scarcity mindset to one of generosity.
Exactly. And the real reason this matters to you, listening, is that this framework, it offers a kind of shortcut, a way to understand how organizations can become these powerful engines of innovation, resilience, and, genuine impact.
Yeah, it's about giving you the tools, really, to envision and maybe help build healthier, more flourishing institutions, whatever your role is.
Okay, so let's start by really understanding the problem, because it's pretty deep. The book argues that organizations built on scarcity, prioritizing fierce competition, short-term profit, even fear, they're literally buckling.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like on the ground?
Well, what's really insightful here is how these traditional models create what Alston calls brittle systems.
Brittle systems, okay.
Yeah, think of rigid hierarchies that they just can't pivot fast enough in today's world, right? The pandemic, for instance.
Oh, yeah?
It totally exposed supply chains that were optimized purely for cost, not for, resilience.
We saw that with semiconductors, didn't we?
Yeah.
Shortages everywhere.
Exactly. And those lean, just-in-time systems, they look efficient in stable times, but they actually lack that crucial slack, that buffer needed to absorb shocks.
Right. No wiggle room.
No wiggle room at all. So the insight isn't just that they break, it's that their very design, optimized for efficiency above all else. It strips away the resilience and, frankly, the humanity needed to survive when things get unpredictable.
That's a really powerful point. And it's not just the systems that are brittle. It's the people too, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The book highlights this massive human cost. Employees just disengaged, burned out.
We hear about that constantly.
And this whole do more with less mentality, it actually backfires. It sabotages efficiency in the long run.
How so?
Well, you see soaring turnover, right? People leave, institutional memory just walks out the door.
Yeah, the knowledge drain.
Exactly. Higher sick days, creativity just plummets. And even that extra discretionary effort, the stuff people do because they care, that just vanishes.
It sounds like a downward spiral.
It absolutely is. And, this raises a really important question. What vital value are these scarcity-driven metrics just completely overlooking?
Like what? Trust. Relationship.
Precisely. When budgets are treated as the zero-sum game, departments start hoarding resources, hoarding data.
Right. Information becomes power, but in a bad way.
In a really bad way. Knowledge becomes a weapon, not something you share.
Yeah.
And that just stifles collaboration across teams, undermines the collective intelligence.
So problem solving slows down right when you need it most.
Exactly. Right when you need rapid iteration.
Okay, I can see how that plays out internally. But what about when these scarcity-based firms try to engage with the outside world? Alston mentions they struggle with coalitions for big systemic changes.
Yeah, that's another key point. Think about huge challenges like climate resilience or public health or even digital ethics. These demand complex, multi-stakeholder partnerships.
Right, you need everyone pulling together.
But if your default mode is seeing every interaction through a lens of competition, efforts just get fragmented. You get these suboptimal results.
So it's not just a missed opportunity, it's actually blocking progress on the big stuff.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental roadblock to solving the biggest problems we're facing.
And the fascinating thing, the book makes this really clear. This isn't some far-off forecast. The collapse of these scarcity models, it's happening right now.
It's unfolding as we speak.
We're seeing major retailers rethinking supply chains, banks overhauling how they look at risk, tech firms embracing open source.
Yeah, all these little signals, or sometimes big signals, of a shift towards these abundance-oriented practices.
So the takeaway is pretty stark, isn't it? Organizations clinging to that old scarcity mindset, they really risk becoming irrelevant, maybe even obsolete.
That's the warning, yeah. Adapt or, well,
Okay, so what is the alternative? This is where the book introduces this idea of redesigning for abundance, purpose, people, planet right at the core. And the author argues pretty strongly that profit maximization just can't be the sole purpose anymore. What does this multidimensional value creation actually look like?
So this holistic vision, it basically means value creation starts integrating environmental and social aspects, not just the financial bottom line.
Okay.
It's about valuing human dignity, community well-being, ecological health, making those things central to why the organization even exists.
So like with employees, for example.
Exactly. Instead of just seeing employees as, inputs or resources, people-centered design views them as whole persons with intrinsic worth. So you invest in leadership development, mental health support, flexible work, psychological safety, and the result, you get exponentially greater creativity and engagement.
Because people feel valued.
Because they are valued. The core insight really is that when you truly value your people, they become this incredible wellspring of innovation and loyalty.
So it's about a healthy balance sheet, sure, but also a healthy workforce and a healthy planet. Is that the idea?
That's it, exactly. And that planet piece, planet-centric thinking, moves beyond just, do no harm sustainability. It goes towards active regeneration.
Regeneration. What does that mean in practice?
Well, things like applying circular economy principles in how you design products, aiming for carbon negative goals, not just neutral, even getting involved in large-scale ecosystem restoration projects.
Wow.
The environment literally becomes a stakeholder that you need to nurture, so business growth actually starts supporting planetary health.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And it naturally leads to more cross-sector collaboration too. Governments, NGOs, universities, private companies, forming these innovation hubs, pooling data, expertise, funding, tackling the big issues together at scale.
I was also really struck by the governance changes the book talks about, like boards incorporating voices beyond just shareholders, employees, communities, even future generations.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And tying executive pay to things like well-being, inclusion, environmental targets. That feels like a fundamental shift in accountability.
It absolutely is. And here's the thing. This isn't just like corporate philanthropy or CSR dressed up. It's presented as a strategic imperative.
How so?
Because organizations that genuinely make this shift, they become the preferred employers, they become trusted partners, they become resilient innovators.
Right, they attract talent and loyalty.
Exactly. They unlock entirely new sources of loyalty, creativity, and, yes, competitive advantage. The real insight here is that generosity isn't actually a cost center. It's an investment in your future relevance and your resilience.
Okay, this is fascinating. Now let's dive into these three converging streams that Alston highlights. This feels like the core alchemy of the abundant organization framework. First up, kingdom leadership. What does that actually mean in an organizational context? How does it translate into practice?
So kingdom leadership basically reimagines power itself. It's not something you wield from the top down. It's seen as stewardship.
Stewardship, like taking care of something.
Exactly. Leaders become caretakers. They cultivate environments where individuals and communities can genuinely flourish. It draws on these, ancient principles of servant leadership, listening deeply, empathizing, empowering others.
So less top-down control.
Much less. Practically, it means decentralizing decision-making, nurturing a culture where ownership is shared. Think less like a boss giving orders and more like a gardener tending a thriving ecosystem.
It's really interesting how the book uses specific biblical models to illustrate this, like the Genesis mandate to till and keep the garden.
Right, which isn't just about farming. It's about cultivation and protection, using power for service.
Or the parable of the talents, which emphasizes wise investment and taking calculated risks, rather than that fear-driven hoarding of resources.
Yeah, or even Noah's Ark. In this context, it's presented as a model for meticulous preparation and cooperative work when facing systemic crises.
Like having a solid crisis plan or an ethical AI policy today.
Exactly. It highlights adhering to principled frameworks, or the idea of a covenantal framework for an organization. That means co-creating mutual commitments, building loyalty, fostering a shared destiny that goes way beyond just a simple contract.
The author also brings in Dr. Myles Munroe's kingdom frameworks, explaining the kingdom of God as, like, a set of governmental principles, not just religious ones. How do those apply in business?
Well, Munroe's insights really emphasize character and integrity as foundational for trust in leadership.
Makes sense.
For a business, that means leaders have to consistently walk the talk, right? Building credibility through actions, not just words. His principle of dominion translates to having a strategic vision for social impact, for thought leadership aiming higher than just market share.
What else?
The laws of process advocate for iterative growth, prototype, pilot, scale, replicate. We see that a lot in agile development, right? And on motivation, he suggests dynamic incentives beyond just salary, things like purpose-aligned recognition, real growth opportunities, tapping into what really drives people intrinsically.
He also talks about the authority of declaration, like cultivating shared belief in the future. That sounds like vision casting.
It's very much about building that powerful vision that inspires everyone to pull together, and creative imagination, literally making dedicated spaces for new ideas, for innovation labs.
And kingdom economics.
Yeah.
That sounded really different. Generosity, circulation, putting revenue back into the community.
Yeah, instead of just focusing on maximizing profit extraction, kingdom economics reimagines wealth as a flow.
A flow.
Yeah, a circulating resource. Through generosity, it actively invests back into the community. So every transaction, in a way, becomes a kind of micro-investment in collective well-being.
So it's not just donating profits, it's like building a dynamic circulatory system for shared prosperity.
That's a great way to put it.
That is a truly different way to look at it. Okay, this brings us to the second stream. Regenerative business. You mentioned this goes beyond just being green.
It really does. It extends beyond sustainability's baseline of do no harm to actively trying to heal and restore.
Heal and restore. How?
It's about designing your operations as living ecosystems. Think biomimetic manufacturing.
Meaning modeling industrial processes on nature.
Exactly, on nature's own efficient designs. Or looking at things like B Corp models, which certify companies meeting high social and environmental standards. The fundamental question really shifts from how little can we take out to how much good can we actually put back in?
So it's an active restorative stance.
Very much so.
And then the third stream, exponential technologies. AI, synthetic biology, decentralized networks.
All the powerful stuff.
These can obviously democratize access to knowledge, to resources, like AI helping doctors in remote areas or precision agriculture reducing waste. But the book stresses a key challenge here, ethical and equitable application.
Absolutely critical, because when these three streams, the kingdom leadership, the regenerative business mindset, and these exponential technologies, when they converge, you get this really potent alchemy.
Alchemy.
Yeah, you have leaders guided by service values, channeling these incredibly powerful tools, but using a regenerative, kingdom-inspired compass to guide them.
So it blends character generosity, patience with technical skills like systems thinking and data literacy.
Exactly. And the book gives tangible examples like that social enterprise in East Africa using mobile tech for regenerative finance, or a co-op in Europe using AI to slash food waste. It's about harnessing advanced tools for deeply human-centric and planet-positive goals.
Okay, so this all sounds incredibly inspiring. But how do we actually build this abundant organization? The book offers some clear building blocks, starting with linking character, culture, and capacity. How do those three fit together?
Right. So character is presented as like the soil, the ground where the organizational culture takes root.
Okay.
When leaders genuinely show integrity, empathy, courage, that sets the tone. It builds trust, psychological safety throughout the whole organization.
And then the culture grows out of that.
Exactly. Culture emerges from all those countless daily interactions, but it needs intentional design too. Things like doing culture audits, really looking at how values show up day to day, and co-creating initiatives with employees so everyone feels they have a hand in shaping the environment.
And capacity. What does that cover here? Is it just skills?
It's more than just technical skills. It's that blend of technical competence and relational dexterity. So expanding how we think about competency frameworks beyond just the job description.
To include things like emotional intelligence, adaptability.
Yes, and systems literacy, the ability to see how all the pieces connect. And then technology underpins it all, enabling collaboration, data-driven decisions, continuous improvement.
So when you weave character, culture, and capacity together intentionally,
The organization transforms. It becomes more like a resilient, adaptive, truly generative living system. That's the takeaway.
let's talk about governance and structure. This idea of distributed leadership sounds like a huge departure from traditional hierarchies.
Oh, it absolutely is. Instead of that rigid top-down pyramid, distributed leadership spreads authority out. Decisions get made closer to where the information actually is often. That's the front line.
So employees become more like active stewards?
Exactly. It fosters this deep sense of ownership, and it makes responses to challenges much faster. But, it requires a lot of trust, a lot of transparency. Peer accountability often steps in where top-down enforcement used to be.
And kingdom-based decision-making structures take this even further.
They do. They draw on principles like justice, compassion, the common good. This might mean setting up multi-stakeholder councils, bringing in customers, community members, maybe even suppliers to give input.
So broadening the perspectives.
Right. Embedding moral principles right into the organizational charters. Honoring subsidiarity.
Subsidiarity.
Yeah, making decisions at the most local, competent level possible. Empowering those closest to the action. It also means using things like ethical impact assessments and even what Alston calls prophetic critique, having mechanisms to challenge things that might drift from the core moral vision.
And to really thrive today, organizations need incredible flexibility, responsiveness. How do abundant organizations build that in?
Well, they shift away from rigid annual plans. Instead, they use things like rolling forecasts, dynamic resource allocation.
More fluid.
Much more fluid. Practices like scenario planning, thinking about multiple possible futures, using modular operating models where bits can be recombined easily. Widespread use of agile methods to shorten feedback loops, allow for quick changes.
Makes sense.
And crucially, they build in strategic reserves. Buffers of cash, talent, capacity, providing that slack needed for experimenting or for handling emergencies. It's about building robustness, not just fragile leanness.
Okay, now talent, purpose, and calling activation. The idea of shifting from job roles to life assignments really jumped out at me. Can you unpack that?
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's about guiding employees to align their personal skills, their experiences, their deep aspirations with what the organization needs, essentially transforming tasks into meaningful missions.
So managers become more like coaches.
Exactly. Calling coaches, helping individuals see how their daily work connects to broader impact. Alston highlights that Kingdom Fellows program in East Africa.
Right, blending theology and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and it led to numerous successful ventures, job creation. The key takeaway is just powerful. When people feel their work is a true expression of their calling, their engagement and creativity they skyrocket.
And designing for passion, not just performance. What does that involve?
It involves things like passion audits, trying to understand what genuinely energizes people. Then the goal is to intentionally embed passion-infused tasks into their work, maybe 20-30% of their workload.
And that's not just about making work fun.
Not just fun. It refreshes engagement, sure, but it also cultivates deep expertise in areas where people have that natural enthusiasm. And that can lead to really unexpected innovations.
In redemptive hiring, that sounds incredibly impactful too.
It absolutely is. It's about expanding talent pools by intentionally recruiting people from unconventional backgrounds, maybe formerly incarcerated individuals, veterans, refugees.
People often overlooked.
Exactly. Recognizing their resilience, their untapped potential, providing tailored support. It reframes recruitment not just as filling a slot, but as an act of restoration, of empowerment. The insight is that so much potential lies outside those conventional hiring pipelines.
Now, shifting to financial systems and this idea of regenerative wealth, abundance-based budgeting. It flips the script from what can we cut to where can a small investment unlock disproportionate benefits? How does that actually work?
Well, it often involves participatory budget design, cross-functional councils working together to allocate resources.
Or more collaborative.
Very. And instead of rigid annual budgets, they might use agile budget sprints to reallocate funds more dynamically as needs change. The focus shifts to measuring return on generosity.
Return on generosity.
Yeah, the tangible and intangible benefits generated per dollar invested rather than just cost cutting. It drives creative stewardship, not just aversion to spending. It's a whole different mindset for resource allocation.
And profit for purpose models, how do they function?
These involve earmarking a significant chunk of profits, maybe say 50% for a dedicated purpose fund, governed by stakeholders.
Okay.
This ensures that marketplace success actively fuels systemic good. And transparency is key here in pricing and compensation, so customers can see the social and environmental investments their purchases are supporting.
It turns buying something into an act of collective impact.
Exactly.
The book also talks about funding innovation through kingdom principles. What does that entail?
Well, it emphasizes those covenantal relationships we talked about and patient capital, looking beyond just immediate returns, using things like innovation seeds.
Small grants.
Small grants, often with a giving forward model, where the innovators share their learnings and maybe even some returns with the next cohort. The Seed and Serve initiative in East Africa is cited as a powerful example.
Or microfinance was integrated with giving baskets.
Right, fostering collective well-being, building a self-sustaining local economy. It dramatically increased incomes, reduced food insecurity. The fundamental insight is that genuine trust and long-term commitment can unlock way more potential than short-term profit motives alone.
Okay, moving on to rhythms, well-being, and connection. This feels absolutely vital for sustainable abundance. How do organizations integrate things like Sabbath, cycles, and creative productivity?
It's about weaving rhythms of rest and renewal into the organizational fabric itself. Not just a weekly Sabbath, though that's part of it for some.
What else?
Micro rests during the day. Digital Sabbaths plan time away from screens, deliberate pauses for reflection for creative flow. The goal is to reshape productivity so it respects natural human cycles.
Because constant output isn't sustainable.
It's not natural, and it ultimately burns people out and stifles innovation.
And cultivating joy in work. That sounds lovely, but how do you actually do it?
Well, things like strengths-based assignments, making sure people regularly get to use their top talents, implementing peer appreciation rituals to build positivity, and really fostering autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
The core drivers of intrinsic motivation.
Exactly. When those are truly embedded, work can become a source of genuine joy and deep engagement.
Robust feedback loops are also mentioned as critical, specifically nonviolent communication, NVC. How does that help?
NVC gives you a framework for feedback that's constructive, not critical. It focuses on objective observations. I noticed X happened, the feelings that arose, I felt Y, the underlying needs, because I need Z, and then making clear requests, would you be willing to?
So instead of you're always late.
Right, which just makes people defensive. You might say, I noticed the last 3 reports arrived after the deadline. I feel stressed because I need that data for my own deadlines. Could we talk about how to ensure they're on time going forward? It's about mutual understanding and problem solving.
What about addressing trauma and abuse in leadership? That's a heavy but incredibly important topic.
Yeah, it's crucial. It involves implementing trauma-informed leadership practices, using restorative justice circles when harm occurs, really shifting the organizational mindset from just punishment to healing and accountability.
And being careful about who gets promoted.
Absolutely. Ethical vetting in leadership succession is key, trying to reduce the risk of putting people with abusive tendencies into power. The core idea is that healthy organizations have to actively work to heal past harms and prevent future ones.
And how do power dynamics really shift under servant leadership?
Well, servant leadership basically flips the traditional pyramid. The people being served, employees, customers, the community, they're at the top.
So leaders empower teams, share decisions.
Genuinely share decision-making, yes. Mapping influence networks to see how power actually flows, instituting mechanisms to ensure authority is dispersed, that decisions are made close to the information. It reframes power as a shared asset for the collective good, not something finite to be hoarded at the top.
Lastly, in this section, covenant-based team building. How's that different from just having team agreements?
Covenants are deeper. They're mutual commitments rooted in shared values and promises. They emphasize relational fidelity, collective thriving. Unlike a typical contract, they act as this really profound touchstone during conflict.
Helping teams navigate disagreements.
Constructively, yes. Preserving deep trust. They're about a shared destiny, not just getting shared tasks done.
Okay, let's turn to technology and innovation. How do they fit into this abundant framework? It's clearly not just about digital transformation for profit's sake, is it?
No, definitely not. It's about grounding any tech adoption squarely in the institution's mission and its communal values first.
Purpose before profit, even with tech.
Right. Digital tools should amplify that purpose, maybe expanding reach to underserved groups, not just boost financial returns. This means user-centered design, making sure the tech serves real human needs, and having strong ethical governance frameworks that prioritize people over pure efficiency.
And AI, blockchain, data ethics. Huge considerations.
Massive. Alston really stresses developing comprehensive data ethics frameworks covering fairness, transparency, privacy, accountability before you deploy these powerful tools.
So thinking it through up front.
Absolutely. For AI, that means things like human-in-the-loop safeguards, continuous auditing for bias. For blockchain, it's balancing that transparency it offers with legitimate privacy concerns, especially since the data is immutable.
Can't easily be changed.
Right. The underlying insight is that these tools are incredibly powerful, so they must be stewarded responsibly, with human well-being always front and center.
The book also touches on tech stewardship, specifically within faith-aligned organizations. What's unique there?
Well, it frames technology as a kind of sacred trust. It means directly linking the adoption of tools to core theological values like service, justice, compassion. It also emphasizes digital equity, making sure tech is accessible to everyone, and even integrating Sabbath observance into tech policies.
Allowing for intentional digital rest.
Exactly, aligning digital life with core values.
Okay, finally, let's explore leadership development and legacy design in this model. What does it really mean to raise stewards, not bosses?
It's about cultivating that service mindset right from the top, redefining leadership competencies to explicitly include things like empathy, humility, and having senior leaders actively model servant behaviors.
So it's not just talk.
No, the focus shifts from giving directives to nurturing the growth and well-being of others, creating a ripple effect down through the organization.
And legacy design. That sounds more proactive than typical succession planning.
It is. Succession planning becomes a kind of covenant, a living promise for continuity. It involves capturing not just processes, but tacit wisdom maybe in legacy journals, which are more than just manuals. They're relational maps, vision narratives.
And things like shadow cohorts.
Yeah, allowing high potential leaders to partner with current leaders on real projects. They learn the technical stuff, sure, but also absorb that stewardship ethos firsthand. The real insight is that legacy isn't just what you leave behind, it's how it continues to grow and multiply.
Which leads nicely into kingdom mentoring.
Yes, which reframes traditional mentorship. It's seen as reciprocal, intergenerational partnerships focused on character, calling, and community impact. Cohorts then multiply this legacy through their networked relationships.
Like those Seed and Serve alumni becoming benefactors themselves.
Exactly. Extending the impact way beyond their own initial ventures, it becomes self-perpetuating.
This really sounds like it could be a global movement. How are these abundance principles actually translating across different sectors, different nations?
Well, the book gives several really compelling examples. In Ghana, for instance, there's a women-led cooperative using covenant-based governance for microfinance. They saw amazing trust and really high repayment rates.
Interesting.
In India, mobile platforms connected smallholder farmers directly to fair markets, apparently quadrupling their incomes in some cases.
Wow.
And in the Netherlands, there's a consortium successfully converting urban waste into biofertilizers that's regenerative design in action.
And it's not just developing economies, right?
Not at all. In North America, some faith-based hospital systems have pioneered trauma-informed care networks. While in Australia, a network of water management cooperatives adopted structures inspired by holacracy.
That decentralized management approach.
Right, distributing authority. They blended ancient wisdom with modern methods.
So these examples really show these aren't just, nice theories. They're adaptable, they're impactful across totally different cultures and regulatory settings.
Exactly. It proves abundance principles can actually thrive anywhere.
Well, what about failures? No big transformation is ever perfectly smooth, right? Does Alston talk about setbacks?
Oh, absolutely. And very transparently, which I appreciate. He acknowledges that even really well-intentioned initiatives can falter.
Like what?
Well, there was a European renewable energy startup that ran into significant community opposition. They learned from it, restructured their governance to include community elders, using restorative justice circles.
Focusing on healing harm and finding solutions together.
Exactly. Another example. A microfinance institution tried an AI credit scoring pilot, but it initially excluded informal workers because of bias in the data.
Oh, that's a common AI problem.
It is. So they paused and they co-designed hybrid models with the community, integrating relational knowledge back into the process.
So failures aren't dead ends. They're inflection points.
Precisely. The core insight seems to be that when organizations embrace transparent listening, when they involve people in redesigning, when they stick to that covenant accountability, setbacks actually become these generative moments, opportunities for learning, for building even more resilient innovation.
It's about building a culture where failure is seen as a stepping stone, not, a tombstone.
That's a great way to put it.
And the book even gives readers these replicable design patterns, things you can actually use to start applying these ideas.
Yes, it distills successful frameworks into these practical modular patterns. Things like the covenant canvas for teams to co-create their commitments, the restorative circle process for handling conflict constructively, agile pivot protocols for responding quickly to disruptions. There's the digital Sabbath pattern for designing those digital rest windows, stewardship apprenticeship for cultivating servant leaders through hands-on practice, and impact KPI mapping to help shift focus from just financial inputs to broader, meaningful outcomes.
So practical tools you could potentially use tomorrow.
Exactly. Designed to help you bridge the gap from theory to practice pretty immediately.
Okay, so wrapping this up,
Yeah.
what does this all really mean? We've taken a pretty deep dive here into a paradigm shift, one that reimagines organizations not as these rigid machines, but as living, relational ecosystems designed for flourishing.
A fundamental shift.
It feels like a really compelling call to move beyond just efficiency towards a deeper, more profound kind of success, one measured in human well-being, planetary health, genuine purpose.
Yeah.
The real takeaway for me is that this isn't just about doing good. It's actually about doing well, but in a way that truly matters, and a way that might actually endure.
It really challenges us to rethink the very foundations of how we organize ourselves, how we operate. It offers a potential path towards institutions that are both incredibly robust and profoundly human.
Indeed. Now, for you, our listener, here's maybe a provocative thought to carry with you from this deep dive. How might embracing even just one of these principles unlock a deeper wellspring of purpose, resilience, and maybe true abundance in your own sphere of influence?
Yeah, whether that's your team, your company, the community you serve.
Right. What one small covenant, a shared promise, or maybe one Thaddeus principle, the rhythm of rest could you introduce, maybe even this week, to start building a slightly more abundant organization around you?